Have you ever wondered about the real motivations behind the Balfour Declaration? This piece of paper, signed over a century ago, has had reverberations that continue to shape the world today. The Balfour Declaration, for those unfamiliar, is a letter penned in 1917 by Britain's Foreign Secretary, Arthur Balfour, to Lord Rothschild, a leading figure in the British Jewish community. In this letter, Balfour stated Britain's support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. On the surface, this document seems a simple gesture of support, but its significance is far more profound. The Balfour Declaration is a beacon of hope for some, a symbol of betrayal for others, and a pivotal moment in the history of the Middle East. It set the stage for the British mandate in Palestine and eventually the creation of the State of Israel. But what if there were more to the story than what meets the eye? Britain's support for a Jewish homeland wasn't purely altruistic. This statement might seem shocking, but when we delve into the strategic interests and political motives that influenced the Balfour Declaration, it becomes clear. Let's begin by considering Britain's strategic interests in the Middle East. In the early 20th century, the Suez Canal was the gateway to colonial routes in Asia and Africa. The canal was the jugular vein of the British Empire, a lifeline that connected the motherland to her colonial offspring. Britain's support for a Jewish state in Palestine, which neighbored Egypt and the Suez Canal, was largely driven by the desire to secure this vital trade route. By establishing a friendly entity in the region, Britain aimed to safeguard the Suez Canal and maintain its imperial dominance. But strategic interests weren't the only driving force. The political climate of the era also played a critical role. At the time, World War I was in full swing, and Britain was in dire need of allies. They found potential support in Jewish communities worldwide, particularly in the United States and Russia. The Balfour Declaration, promising a Jewish homeland in Palestine, was not just an act of goodwill. It was a strategic move designed to secure Jewish support for the Allied war effort, a rallying call to Jewish communities to stand with Britain against the Central Powers. And the strategy worked. The declaration fostered goodwill among Jewish communities and bolstered their support for the Allies. But this political maneuvering was not without its consequences, as we'll explore in later scenes. So we see that Britain's backing of the Balfour Declaration was influenced by a complex mix of strategic interests and political motives. Emphasizing the altruistic aspects of the declaration can oversimplify this intricate web of motivations, painting an incomplete picture of the historical reality. And yet, there was another factor at play: the economy. The next scene will delve into the economic motivations behind the Balfour Declaration and the role played by prominent Jewish figures like Chaim Weizmann. Stay tuned as we continue to shed light on the hidden truths of this pivotal moment in history. Money, as they say, makes the world go round. Now let's delve into the economic factors that played a pivotal role in the Balfour Declaration. It's no secret that prominent Jewish financiers and businessmen held significant sway, both financially and politically, during this era. Britain, recognizing this influence, sought to gain their support. One key figure in this equation was Chaim Weizmann, a biochemist who later became the first president of Israel. But his influence didn't stop at science. Weizmann had a knack for politics too. He leveraged his connections and charisma to cultivate relationships with influential British figures, including Arthur Balfour himself. Weizmann's role was instrumental in persuading the British government of the potential economic benefits that a Jewish homeland in Palestine could bring. He painted a picture of a prosperous and thriving nation, bolstered by Jewish capital and entrepreneurial spirit. This vision, coupled with the promise of financial and political support from influential Jewish communities, was enticing to a Britain embroiled in the costly turmoil of the First World War. But this was a game of chess, not checkers. Britain's motivations were not purely economic. Behind the scenes, political machinations were at play, with promises being made and alliances being forged. It was a complex web of strategic interests, political motives, and economic factors, all converging on the stage of international politics. But while Britain was making promises to the Jews, they were also making promises to the Arabs. Britain, it seems, was playing both sides of the field. Amid the backdrop of the First World War, Britain was making promises to two different factions, the Jews and the Arabs, creating a web of deceit and contradiction. On one hand, the British government was assuring the Zionist movement of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. On the other, it was pledging independence to Arab leaders, as per the McMahon-Hussein correspondence of 1915 to 1916. This correspondence was a series of letters between Sir Henry McMahon, the British High Commissioner in Egypt, and Hussein bin Ali, the Sharif of Mecca. Britain promised Arab independence in return for their support against the Ottoman Empire, a territory that included Palestine. But the intrigue doesn't end there. The Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1916 further muddied the waters. This secret agreement between Britain and France, with assent from Russia, aimed to divide the Ottoman territories among themselves. This was a blatant disregard for both the Arab and Jewish aspirations, a contradiction to the promises made to both parties. The Sykes-Picot Agreement contradicted the McMahon-Hussein correspondence and the Balfour Declaration. It was a classic case of double-dealing, of promising the same land to two different parties. The agreement was kept secret from both the Arabs and the Jews, and when it was eventually exposed, it caused a significant amount of distrust and resentment. The promises made to the Arabs and Jews were not only contradictory, but also unfulfillable. Britain's dual commitments were like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode into conflict. The stage was being set for a clash of nationalistic aspirations, a clash that would shape the Middle East for the century to come. The seeds of distrust and future conflict were sown. The contradictions between Britain's promises to the Arabs and Jews would play a significant role in the ensuing conflicts in the region, the echoes of which can still be heard today. Betrayal, a feeling that the Arab leaders and communities knew all too well. As the Balfour Declaration began to take shape, it was met with a wave of immediate reactions from the Arab world. Their leaders, who had been promised independence in the McMahon-Hussein correspondence, felt deceived. The Arab communities, who had hoped to see their dreams of self-governance realized, were left disillusioned. They had supported Britain against the Ottoman Empire, only to find themselves sidelined in their own land. This sense of betrayal sowed the seeds of distrust and resentment, setting the stage for a long and bitter conflict. The Arab world viewed the declaration as a blatant example of British duplicity. They saw it as a violation of their rights, a disregard for their aspirations, and an imposition of foreign control over their homeland. It wasn't long before this discontent transformed into protests and uprisings, signaling the beginning of an enduring struggle. And while the immediate reactions were intense, the long-term impact of the Balfour Declaration was even more profound. This single document, composed of just 67 words, would go on to shape the course of history in the Middle East. It laid the groundwork for future tensions and conflicts between Jews and Arabs in Palestine. It set the stage for the British Mandate, a period marked by political unrest, economic hardship, and social upheaval. Palestine, a land once known for its diversity and coexistence, was now a battleground of competing nationalisms. The Jewish immigrants, driven by their centuries-long dream of a homeland, and the indigenous Arabs, determined to protect their rights and their land, were locked in a cycle of conflict that would span decades. The Balfour Declaration also had a profound impact on international relations. It became a focal point of contention between Britain and the Arab world, straining diplomatic ties and fueling anti-British sentiments. It also sparked debates about colonialism, self-determination, and the role of international law in resolving conflicts. In retrospect, the Balfour Declaration can be seen as a turning point in the history of Palestine. It was a moment when promises were made and broken, when hopes were raised and dashed, when a new chapter of conflict was written in the annals of history. And while the declaration itself is a product of its time, its legacy continues to influence the politics, society, and culture of the region. The Balfour Declaration, a simple document with complex and far-reaching consequences. It's a reminder of the power of words to shape history, and of the enduring impact of those words on the lives of countless individuals. Today, we've delved into the lesser-known truths of the Balfour Declaration. We've shed light on the strategic interests and political motives that played a significant role in Britain's support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine, an agenda not solely driven by altruism. We've also explored the economic factors at play, highlighting the influence of prominent Jewish financiers and businessmen, including Chaim Weizmann. We've untangled the complex web of dual promises and contradictions, revealing how Britain had made conflicting commitments to both Arab leaders and Jewish communities. This, we've discovered, sowed seeds of distrust and conflict that would reverberate long into the future. In essence, we've provided a new perspective on the Balfour Declaration, one that challenges conventional wisdom and asks us to consider whether we've been misled by Western narratives. If you're intrigued by the unconventional, eager to challenge historical norms, and ready to explore the charted but with a different lens, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time.